The play goes on. Surprising though it may seem, Maharaj is a superb actor. His features are mobile and he has large, expressive eyes. When narrating an incident or discussing a subject, his features spontaneously respond to his words and actions. His speech is very articulate, and when he talks, he makes free use of gestures. It is therefore one thing to listen to a tape recording of his talks, and quite another to hear his vibrant voice accompanied by appropriate gesticulations. He is a star performer indeed. One morning, among the listeners was a well-known European actor. Maharaj was explaining how the image one has about oneself is not a faithful one. It keeps changing from time to time according to the changing circumstances. He went through the entire gamut of the usual lifespan, describing the image one has of oneself as an infant, sucking a nipple and wanting nothing else. Then, as a teenager, bursting with health and strength, and with ambitions to conquer the world. Then, as a love-lorn man, followed by the weary bread-earner with family responsibilities. And finally, onto a sick old man, hardly able to open his mouth and even incapable of controlling his bodily functions. Which is the real you? Which of these different images? He asked. Maharaj's narration was alive with actions and sound effects appropriate to the various stages of life he described. It was sheer drama. We heard him in dumb admiration, and the professional actor was flabbergasted. "Never before have I seen such a brilliant performance," said the actor, though he did not understand a word of the language that Maharaj spoke so effectively. He was simply spellbound. While the actor sat in awe, Maharaj, with a mischievous glint in his eyes, said to him, "I am a good actor, am I not?" He added, "Do you really understand what I am driving at, though? I know you have appreciated this little performance of mine, but what you have seen now is not even an infinitesimal part of what I am capable of doing. The whole universe is my stage. I not only act, but I construct the stage and the equipment. I write the script and direct the actors. Yes, I am the one actor acting the role of millions of people. And what is more, this show never ends. The script is being continuously written, new roles are being conceived, and new settings are propped up for many different situations. Am I not a wonderful actor, director, producer?" The truth, however, he added, is that every one of you can say the same thing about himself. But it is ironic indeed, he continued, that once you are really able to feel with deep conviction that this is so, the show is over for you. Can you perceive that it is only you that is acting the role of every character in the world? Or will you confine yourself to the limited one-bit role that you have assigned to yourself and live and die in that petty role? Standpoint for reading the Gita. At one of the sessions, a distinguished-looking lady visitor wanted to ask a question about the Bhagavad Gita. While she was framing her question in proper words, Maharaj suddenly asked her, "Maharaj, from what standpoint do you read the Gita?"
Visitor. From the standpoint that the Gita is perhaps the most important guide for the spiritual seeker.
Maharaj, why do you give such a stupid answer? Of course, it is a very important guide for the spiritual seeker. It is not a book of fiction. My question is, what is the standpoint from which you read the book?
Another visitor. Sir, I read it as one of the Arjunas in the world for whose benefit the Lord was gracious enough to expound the Gita.
When Maharaj looked around for other answers, there was only a general murmur in confirmation of this response. Maharaj, why not read the Gita from the standpoint of Lord Krishna? To this suggestion, there were simultaneously two types of startled reactions from two visitors. One was a shocked exclamation, clearly implying that the suggestion would amount to sacrilege. The other was a single crisp clap of hands, a reflex action, obviously denoting something like Archimedes's Eureka. Both visitors were embarrassed by their unwitting articulation and by the fact that their reactions were the exact opposite of each other. Maharaj gave the clapper a quick look of approval and continued, Maharaj, most religious books are supposed to be the spoken word of some enlightened person. However enlightened a person may be, he must speak on the basis of certain concepts that he finds acceptable. But the remarkable distinction of the Gita is that Lord Krishna has spoken from the standpoint that he is the source of all manifestation. That is, from the standpoint not of the phenomenon, but of the noumenon, from the standpoint of the total manifestation is myself. This is the uniqueness of the Gita. Now, consider what must have happened before any ancient religious text got recorded. In every case, the enlightened person would have had thoughts that he must have put into words, and the words used may not have been quite adequate to convey his exact thoughts. The master's words would have been heard by the person who recorded them, and what he recorded would surely have been according to his own understanding and interpretation. After this first handwritten record, various copies of it would have been made by several persons, and those copies could have contained numerous errors. In other words, what the reader at any particular time reads and tries to assimilate could be quite different from what was originally intended to be conveyed by the master. Add to this the unwitting or deliberate interpolations by various scholars over centuries, and you will understand the problem I am trying to convey to you. I am told that the Buddha himself spoke only in the local dialect, and his teachings were later interpreted and recorded in other languages. When reading the Gita, I ask you to set aside the identity with the body-mind complex. Read it from the point of view that you are the animating consciousness, the Krishna consciousness, and not the phenomenal object to which it gives sentience. Then, the knowledge that is the Gita may truly be unfolded to you. You will then understand that in the Vishva Rupa Darshana, the vision of the cosmic form, what Lord Krishna showed Arjuna was not only his own Svarupa, true identity, but also the Svarupa of Arjuna himself, and thus the true identity of all readers of the Gita. In short, read the Gita from the standpoint of Lord Krishna, Krishna consciousness. You will then realize that a phenomenon cannot be liberated because it has no independent existence. It is only an illusion, a shadow. If the Gita is read in this spirit, the consciousness that has mistakenly identified itself with the body-mind construct will become aware of its true nature and merge with its source, noumenon and phenomena. It was one of those mornings, perhaps a Monday, when only a few of us, the regulars, were present. Maharaj sat with his eyes closed, still like a statue. After some time, he suddenly started speaking softly, so softly that we unconsciously moved closer to him. He continued to sit with his eyes closed and went on speaking, or rather, thinking aloud. People think that I am They come to me from all over the world, from Canada to Australia, from England to Japan. Most of them have read I Am That and come all the way to Bombay only to meet me. With great difficulty, they manage to locate my small old house in a dirty, narrow street. They climb the stairs and find a small, dark man in the simplest of clothing, sitting in a corner. They think, this man doesn't look like a guru. He doesn't dress impressively, as someone known as Nisargadatta Maharaj should. Could he really be the one? What can I say to these people? He continued. I tell them quite frankly that my education is barely sufficient to be considered literate. I have not read any of the great traditional scriptures, and the only language I know is my native Marathi. The only inquiry I have pursued relentlessly, like a hunter pursuing his quarry, is this. I know I am, and I have a body. How could this happen without my knowledge and consent? And what is this knowledge, I am? This has been my lifelong pursuit, and I am fully satisfied with the answers I have reached. This is my only jnana, yet people think I am a guru. My guru told me, "You are Brahman, you are all, and there is nothing other than you." I accepted these words as truth, and now, for 40-odd years, I have been sitting in this very room doing nothing except talking about it. Why do people come to me from distant lands? What a miracle! After pursuing my inquiry to its logical conclusion, what have I arrived at? The whole thing is really simple, if only one sees the picture clearly. What is thism that I am concerned with? The immediate answer, of course, is this me, this body. But then, the body is only a psychosomatic apparatus. What is the most important element in this apparatus that qualifies it to be known as a sentient being? It is undoubtedly the consciousness, without which this apparatus, while perhaps technically alive, would be useless as far as its functioning is concerned. This consciousness obviously needs a physical construct in which to manifest itself. So, consciousness depends upon the body. But what is the body made of? How does the body come into existence? The body is merely a growth in the woman's womb during a period of about 9 months. The growth of what is conceived by the union of the male and female sexual fluids. These fluids are the essence of the food consumed by the parents. Basically, therefore, both consciousness and the body are made of and sustained by food. Indeed, the body itself is food, one body being the food of another. When the food essence, the vital sexual fluids, grows from conception into a tiny body and is delivered out of the mother's womb, it is called birth. And when this food essence decays due to age or illness, and the psychosomatic apparatus gets destroyed, it is called death. This is what happens all the time, the objective universe projecting and dissolving innumerable forms. The picture keeps on changing. But how am I concerned with this? I am merely the witness to all this happening. Whatever happens during the period of the happening affects only the psychosomatic apparatus, not the I that I am. Once it is clear that whatever happens in the manifested world is something apart from me, the other questions resolve themselves. At what stage did I come to have the knowledge of my existence? What was I before this knowledge I am came to me? This knowledge I am has been with me ever since I can remember, perhaps a few months after this body was born. Therefore, memory itself must have come with this knowledge I am, consciousness. What was the position before that? The answer is, I do not know. Therefore, whatever I know of anything has its beginning in consciousness, including pain and pleasure, day and night, waking and sleeping. Indeed, the entire gamut of dualities and opposites in which one cannot exist without the other. Again, what was the position before consciousness arose? These interrelated opposites inevitably must have existed, but only in negation, in unicity, in wholeness. This must then be the answer. This unicity is what I am. But this unicity, this identity, this wholeness cannot know itself because in it there exists no subject as separate from an object, a position that is necessary for the process of seeing or knowing or cognizing. In other words, in the original state of unicity or wholeness, no medium or instrument exists through which knowing may take place. Mind cannot be used to transcend the mind. The eye cannot see itself. Taste cannot taste itself. Sound cannot hear itself. Phenomena cannot be phenomena without noumenon. The limit of possible conceptualization, the abstract of mind, is noumenon, the infinity of the unknown. Noumenon, the only subject, objectifies itself and perceives the universe, manifesting phenomenally within itself, but apparently outside, in order to be a perceivable object. For the noumenon to manifest itself objectively as the phenomenal universe, the concept of space-time comes into operation, because objects, in order to be cognizable, have to be extended in space by giving them volume, and must be stretched in duration or time, because otherwise they could not be perceived. So, now I have the whole picture. The sentient being is only a very small part within the process of the apparent mirrorization of the noumenon into the phenomenal universe. It is only one object in the total objectivization, and, as such, we can have no nature of our own. And yet, and this is important, phenomena are not something separately created or even projected, but are indeed noumenon conceptualized or objectivized. In other words, the difference is purely notional. Without the notion, they are ever inseparable, and there is no real duality between noumenon and phenomena. This identity, this inseparableness, is the key to the understanding, or rather the apperceiving, of our true nature. Because if this basic unity between the noumenon and the phenomenon is lost sight of, we would get bogged down in the quagmire of objectivization and concepts. Once it is understood that the noumenon is all that we are, and that the phenomena are what we appear to be as separate objects, it will also be understood that no entity can be involved in what we are, and therefore the concept of an entity needing liberation will be seen as nonsense, and liberation, if any, will be seen as liberation from the very concept of bondage and liberation. When I think about what I was before I was born, I know that this concept of I am was not there. In the absence of consciousness, there is no conceptualizing, and whatever seeing takes place is not what one, an entity, sees as a subject, object, but is seeing from within, from the source of all seeing. And then, through this awakening, I realize that the all-enveloping wholeness of the Absolute cannot have even a touch of the relative imperfection. And so I must, relatively, live through the allotted span of life until, at the end of it, this relative knowledge merges in the no-knowing state of the Absolute. This temporary condition of I know then merges into that eternal state of I do not know, and I do not know becomes I do not know. Manifestation is a dream. Numerous casual visitors come to Maharaj just for a darshan, perhaps because someone in their group spoke highly of him and, having nothing better to do, they thought they might as well drop in and see what the whole thing was about. But there are many who are deeply interested in the one subject about which Maharaj talks. Quite a few of them have attended several sessions, and they honestly believe that they have a firm grasp of what Maharaj so earnestly talks about. Perhaps, in answer to a query from Maharaj, whether they have understood what he has been trying to convey, one of them would say, "Yes, Maharaj, I have clearly understood it. But I have only one last question." The last question often concerns the manifestation of the noumenon as phenomena. The questioner might say,
Visitor, Maharaj, you have said that the absolute noumenon is unaware of its awareness until consciousness begins to stir and the first thought, I am, arises. And then the wholeness is broken up into duality, and manifestation of the universe takes place. My question is, why did the first thought arise, and why did manifestation take place at all?
Maharaj would look at the questioner with an expression indicating several reactions. A mixture of compassion, appreciation of the questioner's sincerity, a certain amount of amusement at the confidence with which he thinks he has understood the subject, but, most importantly, disappointment that the questioner had not understood the point after all. Another failure. Maharaj, very softly, I am afraid you have not really grasped what you have been hearing. You have been hearing, but not listening. You have been hearing what I have been saying, as a collection of little bits and pieces, not listening to the whole. Hearing words with the divided mind of the individual instead of listening to the meaning with the whole mind. Hearing as a separate hearer, not listening after integrating yourself with the guru. And I do not mean the physical individual guru, which you would have in mind, but the Sadguru within yourself. Otherwise, this question would not have arisen. But, in a way, I myself am rather fond of such inquiry because it exposes the usual way of thinking. Or rather, the thinking exposes itself. Consider, to whom did this question occur? Where did it occur? Did the question not occur to a you who considers himself an entity with an independent existence? And did it not occur in consciousness? There would be no entity, this supposed pseudo-entity, in the absence of consciousness. And consciousness is only a concept without any objective quality whatsoever, and as such, without any phenomenal existence. What we have arrived at, then, is this. In the absence of the substratum of consciousness, there is no manifestation, and therefore no separate pseudo-entities to ask any questions at all. And consciousness is only a concept. Therefore, I call the entire manifestation the child of a barren woman. In these circumstances, can this that we are, ever be understood by the tainted mind of a conceptual pseudo-entity? Indeed, it is only when this entity disappears that the mystery dissolves, for the simple reason that the searcher is what he is searching for. Your question, moreover, assumes that basically manifestation and non-manifestation are two different things, but they are not. They are essentially the same state, like waves on an expanse of water. When colored by a sense of being, it is consciousness in which manifestation appears with its limitations. When colorless and limitless, it is the absolute, unaware of its awareness. The phenomena are only the mirroring of the noumenon. They are not different. The noumenon is like, again, a concept in order to make communication possible. The one source of electricity passing through a number of exhibits, such as lamps, fans, motors, etc., or like the one source of light reflected in myriad mirrors, consciousness manifesting itself through millions of sentient forms. Now, do you see your question in the correct perspective? A shadow wants to know why? One of the characters played by a single actor taking various roles in a one-man play wants to know why? The answer could well be, why not? Actually, there could not be any question, neither why nor why not, because there really is no questioner at all, only a concept. Manifestation is like a dream. Why does a dream occur? Love and God. The dialogue one evening was started by a young Canadian wearing a lungi and a thin kurta. He said he was 23 but looked barely out of his teens. Around his neck, he wore an elegant little silver cross on a dainty chain. He explained that he had come across the book I Am That in a bookshop in Bombay a couple of days ago. A cursory glance at a few pages impelled in him a desire to meet Maharaj personally. He had already gone through the book, reading almost continuously through the afternoon, evening, and night, and had finished both volumes only a few hours ago. Maharaj, you are so young. I wonder, since what age have you been interested in the spiritual quest?
Visitor. Sir, ever since I remember, I have been deeply interested in love and God, and I strongly felt that they are not different. When I sit in meditation, I often...
Maharaj, wait a moment. What exactly do you mean by meditation?
Visitor. I don't really know. All I do is sit cross-legged, close my eyes, and remain absolutely quiet. I find my body relaxing, almost melting away, and my mind, or being, or whatever, merging into space, and the thought process getting gradually suspended.
Maharaj, that's good. Please proceed.
Visitor. Quite often, during meditation, an overwhelming feeling of ecstatic love arises in my heart, together with a sense of well-being. I do not know what it is. It was during one such spell that I felt inspired to visit India, and here I am.
Maharaj, how long will you be in Bombay?
Visitor. I really don't know. I rarely make any plans. I have sufficient money to live frugally for about 15 days, and I have my return ticket.
Maharaj, now tell me, what is it exactly that you want to know? Do you have any specific questions?
Visitor. I was a very confused man when I landed in Bombay. I felt I was almost going out of my mind. I don't even know what brought me to the bookshop, as I don't do much reading. The moment I picked up the first volume of I Am That, I experienced the same overpowering feeling that I get during my meditation. As I went on reading the book, a weight seemed to lift off from within me, and now, as I am sitting here before you, I feel as if I am talking to myself, and what I am saying to myself seems like blasphemy. I was convinced that love is God, but now I think that love is surely a concept, and if love is a concept, God also must be a concept.
Maharaj, so, what is wrong with that?
Visitor. Laughing. Now, if you put it like that, I have no feeling of guilt in transforming God into a concept.
Maharaj, actually you said love is God. What do you mean by the word love? Do you mean love as the opposite of hate? Or do you mean something else? Although, of course, no word can adequately describe God.
Visitor. No. By the word love, I certainly do not mean the opposite of hate. What I mean is that love is abstaining from discrimination as me and the other.
Maharaj, in other words, unity of being?
Visitor. Yes, indeed. What then is God to whom I am expected to pray?
Maharaj, let us talk about prayer later. Now, what exactly is this God you are talking about? Is he not the very consciousness, the sense of being that one has, because of which you are able to ask questions? I am itself is God. What is it that you love most? Is it not this I am, the conscious presence which you want to preserve at any cost? The seeking itself is God. In seeking, you discover that you are apart from this body-mind complex. If you were not conscious, would the world exist for you? Would there be any idea of a God? And the consciousness in you and the consciousness in me, are they different? Are they not separate only as concepts, seeking unity unconceived? And is that not love?
Visitor. Now, I understand what is meant by God is nearer to me than I am to myself.
Maharaj. Also, remember, there can be no proof of reality other than being it. Indeed, you are it, and have always been. Consciousness leaves with the end of the body, and is therefore time-bound, and with it, the duality that is the basis of consciousness and manifestation.
Visitor. What then is prayer, and what is its purpose?
Maharaj, prayer, as it is generally understood, is nothing but begging for something. Actually, prayer means communion, uniting, yoga.
Visitor. Everything is so clear now, as if a great deal of rubbish has been suddenly thrown out of my system, out of existence.
Maharaj, do you mean that you now seem to see everything clearly?
Visitor. No, not seems. It is clear, so clear that I am now amazed that it was not clear at any time. Various statements that I had read in the Bible, which seemed important but vague before, are now crystal clear. Statements like, before Abraham was, I am. I and my Father are one. I am that I am.
Maharaj, Good. Now that you know what it is all about, what sadhana will you do to obtain liberation from your bondage?
Visitor. Ah, Maharaj. Now you are surely making fun of me. Or are you testing me? Surely, now I know and have realized that I am, which I have always been and will always be. What is left to be done, or undone, and who is to do it, and for what purpose?
Maharaj, excellent. Just be.
Visitor. I shall, indeed.
Then, the young Canadian prostrated before Maharaj, his eyes brimming with tears of gratitude and joy. Maharaj asked him if he would be coming again, and the young man said, "Honestly, I don't know." When he left, Maharaj sat for a while with his eyes closed, the gentlest of smiles on his lips. He then said very softly, "A rare one." I could barely catch the words. I never saw the young Canadian again, and I have often wondered about him. He came to scoff. When one participates in the conversation between Maharaj and his visitors over a period, one is astonished at the range of questions that are asked, many of them shockingly naive, and the spontaneity and ease with which the answers come from Maharaj. Both the questions and answers are translated as accurately as possible. Maharaj's answers in Marathi, which is the only language he is fluent in, would naturally be based on the Marathi words used in the translation of the question. In his answers, however, Maharaj makes very clever use of the Marathi words used in the translation of the question, either by way of puns or by a slight change in the words themselves, producing interpretations sometimes totally different from their usual meaning. The exact significance of such words could never be brought out in any translations. Maharaj frankly admits that it is usually in the lighter vein that he uses the Marathi language in exposing the mental level of the questioner and the intent and the conditioning behind his question. If the questioner treats the session as an entertainment, albeit of a superior kind, Maharaj is ready to join in the fun, in the absence of better subjects and better company. Among the visitors, there is occasionally an unusual type of person who has a very keen intellect, but is armed with a devastating skepticism. He is cocksure that he has an open mind and a penetrating intellectual curiosity. He wants to be convinced, and not merely cajoled by vague and woolly words that religious teachers often dole out in their discourses. Maharaj, of course, is quick to recognize this type, and then the conversation at once assumes a piquancy that leaves one stunned. The intuitive perception underlying the words of Maharaj simply sweeps away the metaphysical quibbles put forward by such an intellectual. One wonders how a man who did not have even the benefit of proper schooling can prove more than a match for pedantic scholars and skeptical agnostics who believe themselves to be invulnerable. Maharaj's words are always galvanic and scintillating. He never quotes authorities from the scriptures in Sanskrit or any other language. If one of the visitors should quote even a fairly familiar verse from the scriptures, Maharaj has to ask for a Marathi translation of it. His intuitive perception needs no support by way of the words from any other authority. His own internal resources are limitless indeed. Whatever I say, says Maharaj, stands by itself. It needs no support. One of the usual visitors at the session had brought with him a friend and introduced him to Maharaj as a man with a very keen intellect who would not take anything for granted and who would question everything before accepting it. Maharaj said he was happy to meet such a person. The new visitor was a professor of mathematics. Maharaj suggested that it would perhaps be best for the two of them to have a dialogue without assumptions of any kind, right from the basic level. Would he like that? The visitor must have been most pleasantly surprised at this offer. He said he was delighted at the suggestion. Maharaj, now tell me, you are sitting before me here And now, what exactly do you think you are?
Visitor, I am a male human being, 49 years old, with certain physical measurements and with certain hopes and aspirations.
Maharaj, what was your image about yourself 10 years ago? Same as it is now? And when you were 10 years old? And when you were an infant? And even before that? Has not your image about yourself changed all the time?
Visitor, yes, what I considered as my identity has been changing all the time.
Maharaj, and yet, is there not something, when you think about yourself, deep down, that has not changed?
Visitor, yes, there is, though I cannot specify what exactly it is.
Maharaj, is it not the simple sense of being, the sense of existing, the sense of presence? If you were not conscious, would your body exist for you? Would there be any world for you? Would there then be any question of God or the universe?
Visitor, this is certainly something to ponder. But tell me, please, how do you see yourself?
Maharaj, I am this. I am, or, if you prefer, I am that. I am.
Visitor, I am sorry, but I don't understand.
Maharaj, when you say, I think I understand, it is all wrong. When you say, I don't understand, that is absolutely true. Let me make it simpler. I am the conscious presence, not this individual or that, but conscious presence as such.
Visitor, again, I was about to say, I think I understand, but you have just said that that is wrong. You're not deliberately trying to get me confused, are you?
Maharaj, on the contrary, I am telling you the exact position. Objectively, I am all that appears in the mirror of consciousness. Absolutely, I am that. I am the consciousness in which the world appears.
Visitor, I am afraid I don't see that. All I can see is what appears before me.
Maharaj, would you be able to see what appears before you if you were not conscious? No. Is all existence, therefore, not purely objective, inasmuch as you exist only in my consciousness, and I in yours? Is it not clear that our experience of one another is limited to an act of cognition in consciousness? In other words, what we call our existence is merely in the mind of someone else, and, therefore, only conceptual. Ponder over this, too.
Visitor, are you trying to tell me that we are all mere phenomena in consciousness, phantoms in the world? And what about the world itself, and all the events that occur?
Maharaj, ponder over what I have said. Can you find a flaw in it? The physical body, which one generally identifies with oneself, is only the physical construct for the prana, the life force, and consciousness. Without the prana, consciousness is the physical body, only a cadaver. It is only because consciousness has mistakenly identified itself with its physical covering, the psychosomatic apparatus, that the individual comes into existence.
Visitor, now, you and I are separate individuals who have to live and work in this world along with millions of others, of course. How do you view me?
Maharaj, I view you in this world exactly as you view yourself in your dream. Does that satisfy you? In a dream, whilst your body is resting in your bed, you have created a whole world, parallel to what you call the real world, in which there are people, including yourself. How do you view yourself in your dream? In the waking state, the world emerges, and you are taken into what I would call a waking dream state. While you are dreaming, your dream world appears to you very real indeed, does it not? How do you know that this world that you call real is also not a dream? It is a dream from which you must awaken yourself by seeing the false as false, the unreal as unreal, the transient as transient, It can only exist in conceptual space-time. And then, after such an awakening, you are in reality. Then you see the world as living, as a phenomenal dream within the periphery of sensorial perception in space-time, with a supposed volitional freedom. Now, about what you call an individual. Why don't you examine this phenomenon analytically, of course with an open mind, after giving up all existing mental conditioning and preconceived ideas? If you do so, what will you find? Blind youth with true vision. Once, at the end of a rather long dialogue-cum-discourse session, during which Maharaj repeatedly brought his listeners to the basic point of his teaching, that the conscious presence, I am, is the original concept on which everything else appears, and that this concept itself is only an illusion. He asked the question, "Maharaj, have you understood what I am trying to say?" This question was addressed to the listeners generally. All were silent, but one among them said,
Visitor, yes, Maharaj. I have understood your words intellectually, but
Maharaj heard the answer and smiled wearily, perhaps because he was amused by the fact that the speaker, though he said he understood, had not really understood. He then proceeded further to explain the subject lucidly and categorically as follows. The knowledge I am, or consciousness, is the only capital a sentient being has. Indeed, without consciousness, he would not have sentience. When this I amness is not present, as in deep sleep, there is no body, no outside world, and no God. It is evident that a tiny speck of this consciousness contains the entire universe. Nevertheless, consciousness cannot exist without a physical body, and the existence of the body being temporal, consciousness also must be temporal. Finally, if consciousness is time-bound and not eternal, any knowledge acquired through the medium of consciousness cannot be the ultimate truth, and is therefore ultimately to be rejected. Or, as I said, it must be offered to Brahman as an oblation, whether you call it consciousness, beingness, I amness, Ishwara, God, or any other name. In other words, the interrelated opposites, both knowledge and ignorance, are in the realm of the known, and, therefore, not the truth. Truth is only in the unknown. Once this is clearly understood, nothing more remains to be done. Indeed, there is really no entity to do anything. After uttering these words, Maharaj became silent and closed his eyes. The little loft room seemed to be submerged in an effulgent peace. Not a word was spoken by anybody. I wondered why it is that most of us are unable to see and feel the dynamic manifestation of truth presented by Maharaj time and again, and why some of us, though very few, see it in a flash. After some time, when Maharaj opened his eyes and we all reverted to the normal state, someone drew his attention to the poor, blind young man who had recently attended his talks only twice, once in the morning and again the same evening, and had gone back liberated. At the end of the session, when this young man bade goodbye to Maharaj, he was asked whether he had understood what it was all about. He confidently replied,
blind youth. Yes.
When Maharaj asked him what he had understood, the young man sat quietly for a few moments and then spoke.
Blind youth. Maharaj, I do not have the right words to express my feelings of gratitude to you for making the whole picture so very clear to me, so simply and so quickly. I can summarize your teaching. You asked me to remember what I was before I had this knowledge of I am together with the body, that is, before I was born. You told me that this body-come consciousness had come upon me without my knowledge or concurrence. Therefore, I had never been born. This body-come consciousness that is born is time-bound, and when it disappears at the end of its allotted span, I shall be back in my original state, which is always present but not in manifestation. Therefore, I am not consciousness, and certainly not the physical construct that houses this consciousness. Finally, I understand that there is only that, neither me, nor mine, nor you, only that which is. There is no bondage other than the concept of a separate me and mine in this totality of manifestation and functioning. After hearing these words from the blind youth, uttered with absolute conviction, Maharaj gave him a look of understanding and love and asked him,
Maharaj, now what will you be doing?
Blind youth, Sir, I have understood you truly. I will be doing nothing. Living will go on.
He then paid his respects to Maharaj with great adoration and left. Maharaj, the blind young man was not really blind. He had the true vision. There are few like him.